Welcome back to part 2 of the 1.0 to a 2.0 liter swap on the Ford Focus, as well as the DPS6 transmission. So this car was originally a 1.0 turbo with the traditional, I'm not sure what the transmission is, but just the regular, I think 6-speed automatic transmission. This engine and transmission came out of a 2018 2.0 liter with the DPS6. So that being said, right now I have pretty much enough stuff connected to make this car run. However, after about 3 days of no sleep and a bunch of research, I ended up swapping the main engine bay harness in and out at least 3 to 4 times, trying to figure out which one I need to run. The one on the table here is the one that was originally in the 1.0 liter, and I thought I was able to put it back in and use it with the 2.0. Turns out that was not the case. Long story short, the only way I can make the car run and possibly drive is by using a donor car main underhood harness. The main issue was I could not get communication with the TCM with the original body fuse box and body harness from the 1.0. I tried everything, and there's possibly just a few wires that need to be switched because the fuse for the TCM is the same location as 1.0 and a 2.0. So that being said, they must have changed a few wires around, and I'm sure if I really dig into it, I could pull up the wiring schematics online and figure it out and switch a few wires here and there and make it work. But it was easier just to use the 2018 donor car harness. At this point, I do have communication with all the modules, besides like the climate control, which I'm gonna end up swapping it from the donor car anyways. But right now I'm focused on getting the car running and driving, and I have 2 keys programmed already. I have the modules reprogrammed. I have the VINs matching in all the modules. I have the shifter hooked up from the donor car as well with the cable and everything. It does want an oil change, which has been done, just needs to be reset. And it is reading park, reverse, neutral, drive, and sport. I don't know why it says sport. I'm gonna need to change that because this car no longer has sport mode. It has a lower gear. So instead of sport, it's gonna be an L on the cluster. But like I said, I got both keys programmed. Let's try to fire this thing up. And look at that. She runs. There is tons of code still, but not in the PCM or the BCM. And it runs great. I'm not going to run it for long because there's no cooling. But that's what I'm going to focus on next, is connecting the front end together and putting the coolant. What was that? That's weird. There's some kind of hissing going on. It must be like a must be loose connection or something. But at this point, like I said, I'm gonna focus on the front end. I'm gonna put the radiators and condenser in and stuff like that. Not gonna connect anything to the heater core because I'm gonna end up taking the whole dash out eventually. Right now I just want to get this thing running and driving so I can move this thing around, and then I'll put both cars side by side, take both dashes out, and then swap over what needs to be swapped and go from there. As I'm assembling this whole front end with the radiator and the condenser and the shutter, most people do delete the shutter, but I already have one. I'm gonna go ahead and use it. But I realized that I stole the fan out of this assembly for another build and I never replaced it, so I don't have a fan. I do have a bunch of fan modules, so I'll just order the fan housing with the blade. But that's not the point here. I mentioned earlier that I was gonna go ahead and connect everything as far as cooling and leave the heater core unplugged, yes, I can bypass it like I did on my race car, but why do that? I'm gonna go ahead and focus on removing the interior, the dash, and then taking care of the heater core assembly inside, and then just going back and connecting all the cooling hoses back where they're supposed to be. Because if I just bypass it, that just gives me extra work. I'll have to drain the coolant again, and I don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take the dash out, and then that way we can connect the cooling system. We know this car runs and it goes into gear. It does go forward and back. Will it drive? We don't know yet until we have it on the wheels. So let's get inside. So everything is basically assembled inside the vehicle, and just besides a few trim pieces here and there, which I want to go ahead and vacuum all this up and then put the seats in it and put the doors back on. But at this point everything is connected, clusters in, steering wheels back in, everything is there. No climate control once again, because all these parts came from the parts car that did not have climate control. And then other than that, there's no auto start stop option, which is useless in my opinion. I always disable it because it's bad for the starter, bad for the engine. It's just ridiculous. Let me go ahead and get all of these bolts off the floor and vacuum in here, and then still missing a fan in here, which I have. I just need to install it, and that way I can go ahead and start this car and do the coolant bleed, and then vacuum the AC system and then fill it up. So not much left, but it all takes time. I've got it cleaned up pretty nice in here, good enough for now. Reason why I wanted to assemble the center console and all that, just so I can have the heat cranking on full blast while the car is running. I'm gonna fill it with coolant, that way it cycles through the heater core and all that. So at this point I'm gonna go ahead and start it and let it idle and get it up to full temp. Alright, so I got the coolant in, it's bled, this thing got up to full temp. The fan did not kick on yet, but I think I know why. I'm not gonna run it much longer until I assemble everything, because the door's missing on the right side, and it does have the temperature, the ambient temperature sensor in it, so it's still probably not running perfect. Also gonna have to do a crank relearn, but I gotta say, this car actually wore me out. When I say that is because I had to remove the harness multiple times and this and that, but that's because I was trying to figure out if I can actually use the original harness out of the 1.0, and turns out you cannot, because a few wires are switched around and it's not getting communication to the TCM. So next one is going to be easier for sure, because now I know what I need to swap. And if you are trying to do this, make sure you have a complete donor car, because a lot of parts have to come out of the donor car and they have to go in here, and the struggle was real, but the end result, it runs, probably drives, because I did put it in drive and reverse, and it does do what it's supposed to do. So I guess I'm gonna keep assembling the interior and then test drive. Well, there she is outside running and driving. Obviously drove backwards and a little bit forwards. Still have a few codes in the PCM. No communication with the shutter. I believe maybe just the shutter motor is bad. Other than that, the stereo doesn't work. It says no communication with the stereo, which is kind of weird, but I think it might be the harness and the center console here. I ended up using the original from a 1.0, but they're a little bit different because 1.0 had the auto start stop button right here, so I'll switch that out, no problem. Got the airbag in. As far as airbags, I still have a code for this seatbelt tensioner, but I believe I took it and used it in a different car, so, and then I put the bad one on here, but I'll swap that out. The glove box is still not in because I have not put a official connector on those 10 wires, which I will do once everything checks out as far as running and driving, and then I'll button that up. But other than that, she runs good. She's got a full tank of gas. This gas is probably almost a year old, and that's how long this car's been sitting, so I'm gonna have to run some kind of cleaner through it, I'm sure. Again, TPMS light is on because the tires are low, but I'm gonna run different wheels anyways. Airbag light is on because of this seatbelt tensioner and low washer fluid, which is completely empty. But everything else works great. You're probably wondering, why is the radiator support blue? Because it came off the parts donor car. I guess I used the original one off this car that was in black on another build, so I'm gonna have to remove it all again and get this thing painted, or go pick up a black one, so I don't have to paint it. But I'm gonna go ahead and leave the hood off, because how else are you supposed to show off this 2.0 with the ecoboost badge? That's right, it still has the ecoboost badge that needs to come off. Or maybe I'll leave that on there just to throw people off. But this thing turned out pretty good. It did take a lot of time, but like I said, on the next one it's going to be a lot easier, and things will roll a lot quicker because I already know what needs to be swapped out. Unfortunately, the donor car did not have fog lights, so I will have to wire in these fog lights, because the 1.0 actually did have the connector for the fog lights. This one does not. Not a big deal. These tires, like I said, are really bad, especially this one right here. I'm not even sure if I'm okay driving this down the road, because that looks like it's about to blow. But I am putting a different set of wheels. So before I go on the test drive, I'm gonna make sure that I do have a spare tire in here, which I do. And I'm assuming the jack, it looks like it is under there, so I think we're good to roll. Let's go. Oh man, this is awesome. Have to have the windows open because I haven't filled the AC yet, but I'm gonna close them for a second. It drives really good. It drives really good so far. It's went through all 6 gears, and this thing's awesome. Feels much better than the 1.0. I mean, yeah, 1.0 when they're brand new, I'm sure they're quick. You know, it's got a little turbo. It's like this big, but the 2.0 is just such a reliable engine, especially the non-turbo ones. Even the 2.0 turbo in the Ford Focus ST and the Escape and the Fusion is not that bad, as long as you keep up with the maintenance. But man, I'm just so happy this thing runs and drives again. I mean, that's awesome.